All right. Well, I guess we should just introduce ourselves again for people who may not have been there previous. I'm Ethan. I'm a first year CS major. And yeah, I'll be one of your tech fellows.
All right. Hey, everyone. I'm Minja. I'm a first year CS major, and I'm going to be the other tech fellow.
You're muted.
Sorry, I'm muted. Hi, guys. I'm Derek. I'm the iOS director for the UCI code path, and I'm just here to help and then also go to breakout rooms if you guys need specific questions or need answers to specific questions.
Hey guys, I'm Hermaine. I'm also the iOS director. You can also ask me for help and we can also go into breakout rooms.
Just a reminder from previous class, if you guys weren't there, if you guys have any questions, feel free to PM Derek or Hermaine. They're going to be there in the background to help you guys. And then this time we're going to try to implement breakout rooms. So if you have an issue where it requires kind of more one-on-one personal mentoring, then we can break you guys out into a breakout room and then we can figure out everything in the tech flow. So yeah, do you want to start presenting?
All right. Yeah. Next slide. Okay. So welcome to Unit 2, guys. All right. Next slide. Hopefully last week you guys finished Flix Part 1 and didn't have any issues. If you do, remember you can always access the Slack or ask one of us right now, and the tech fellows and iOS directors will be able to help you out. Next slide.
Also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we pushed the due date of this back to Wednesday, if I recall correctly. So if you guys have not finished this yet, that's okay. It's due Wednesday. But yeah, if you guys have already done it, then some of the stuff you're going to go over today is review, but for others, it's going to help you with the assignments.
Yeah, so just a reminder, if you go onto the course portal, and the URL for that is going to be courses.codepath.org. That's where you're going to be able to find all the material and the resources you need for this class. And you guys probably are familiar with this already if you guys did Flix Part 1, but we do have some helpful instructional walkthrough videos that you're going to be able to follow and complete the projects. And yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, so this is also where you're going to be submitting course assignments. You guys have probably done this already if you completed Flix Part 1, but at the very top, there's another tab called Assignment. And if you click on Submit, you can enter in all the required information and then submit your project successfully. And about grading, Hermaine answered the question in the chat earlier. We don't grade it, but the CodePath org grades it, and you should be able to get your grades back in the next week or so after you submit successfully. And the deadline for Flix Part 2, which is what you're going to be working on this week, is midnight before the first session of next week. And since we meet on Tuesdays at 5 p.m., it's going to be due next Monday at 11:59 p.m.
And just to recap the projects that we're doing, these are two-parters. So we're going to do Flix, and then next is Twitter, I believe, and then Instagram, and those are going to all be two parts. So it's going to be part 1 and part 2. That's all we can be broken
down. Yeah. And again, places where you can look if you need help. We do have a discussion board that you can access through the CodePath course portal. This is pretty helpful. I know Ethan used this quite a bit last quarter, and we always have people monitoring it, and you're able to get an answer for your question relatively quickly. And most of you guys, or all of you guys, should be in the Slack already. And feel free to ask questions in the Slack because we have TAs and people who are very familiar and knowledgeable with Xcode and Swift, and they'll be able to help you out. Next slide. Yeah, so today we're going to be working on the Unit 2 lab. We're going to be building a Tumblr application, as you'll be seeing later. Make sure you get through the first steps of the assignment in order to be prepared for next week's lab. Flix Part 2, the assignment is due by the posted deadline, so next Monday at 11:59 p.m. And be sure to start early so that when you run into issues, you have time to ask people and get help, and make sure you're not working on it at the last minute. Are there any questions? All right. So this week we're going to be talking about segues. So what is a segue? Next slide, please. All right. This is an example of a segue. But that's not the segue we're going to be talking about this week. Instead, we're going to be talking about the iOS and Swift version of them. And in Xcode, we use segues to pass information between view controllers. For example, if you guys go on Twitter, and you can see in the GIF on the left, this guy is scrolling through his list of tweets, and if he clicks on one, it goes to an expanded version that provides the same info that that tweet does, but in a larger form. And so we use segues to kind of tell the new view controller that shows up, this is the info that I want you to display, and I'm going to pass it in between view controllers with a segue. And we'll be showing you a little bit more about how to do that in just a second. Next slide. Yeah. So this is kind of what I just went over. It passes in the text as well as the user's profile picture, their username, and all the comment info. And we need to be able to do this in order to have navigation and different pages and things working correctly in our app. Yeah. So this is what we're going to be building today. Segues in a Tumblr app. So we've already provided a starter kit. Hopefully you guys received the email just 30 minutes ago or so. If you didn't download it already, go ahead and open the email from CodePath at UCI and download the starter file for the Tumblr app we're going to be working on today. And basically the starter file kind of provides an already semi-complete version of it. And all we're going to be doing today is implementing the segue to finish it up. And after we're done, it's going to be able to look like this, where you can click on an individual photo and have it segue into another sort of view.
So basically last week we went over table view cells and table views, and that's kind of the part that we did for you in the starter kit. So we're just going to be building on top of that and implementing segues. Once again, this is kind of just segues in terms of what we're going to do today. So our objective is to be able to have a picture, click on that picture, and just kind of display the picture again. It's kind of redundant, but this is kind of captures the essence of what segues do and what we're trying to accomplish. And we'll go over all of this as well. And let's get to coding. All right. If you guys want to go ahead and open the starter kit, and then we can get started from there. Also, make sure whenever you guys are opening your projects, open it with the XC workspace, not the Xcode project, because we installed CocoaPods, and those are only going to be available through the XC workspace. So once you install those CocoaPods, never use the Xcode project again. Only use the XC workspace. All right, and I'll give a minute for everybody to kind of get here. All right, so I'll kind of just start talking about what we have at the moment. Like I said before, we kind of have a table view implemented here with a cell. And this is, again, kind of what we went over last time. And what we're going to be doing is implementing it so that when you click on this cell here, it brings us to a new view controller. And that view controller is going to have the data. Let me look. It looks like there are some questions. How do I know if I'm in the workspace? I just opened the existing project in Xcode and click the folder. When you click the folder, it should come up like this, and then click on the workspace instead of the Xcode project. Hopefully that answers your question. If you have any other questions, feel free to direct them to Derek or Hermine. All right, so like I said before, this is table view. This is going to be one of the cells. So as you can expect, this is going to be repeated over and over again. And the data that we're pulling from is, I don't know if you guys know the Instagram account on Humans of New York, where it kind of posts pictures of people in a day-to-day setting, and it kind of explains their story. So we're going to have pictures and collages from that Instagram account, and that's what we're going to be using for our data. And that's already pre-implemented. We're just going to implement the segue. So when we click it, it goes to another one. All right, so since we want this to go to another view controller when we click it, the first thing we have to do is actually make another view controller. So if you recall from last time, how you do that is you click the plus button up here. And if you look at UI view controller, that should be an option. And then go ahead and just drag that right here. Just put it wherever. Once again, we're adding another view controller. So just click on the plus button here and then look up view controller. And then the one with this symbol here, go ahead and drag that into your project and you should be good. I'll wait for a second for everybody. All right, so the next thing we want to do, kind of the same premise. Since our final goal is to have another picture of this apparent when we click on the image, we need to actually have an image to edit here, right? So go ahead and add a UI image view from your objects library. And the same premise, except for this time, we're going to put it inside of the view controller that we just created. And kind of just put it on the top here. At the top, I'd say that's like a quadrant, top quadrant, kind of like that. And this kind of is foreshadowing what we're going to do next week. Next week, what we're going to be talking about is constraints, which is fixing the size of the images. We're not going to worry about that today, but next week we're going to talk about size of images and layouts, and that's how people make apps look nice. Because if you notice, some of our apps are a little messy right now, but we'll worry about that next week. Once again, click on the objects library, UI image view, and drag that onto your newly created view controller. Okay, so next, what we want to do is go ahead and sure. Let me go ahead and run this actually so you guys can see what you guys have in the starter. There it is. It should be loading shortly. It takes a little while. All right, so you guys can kind of see what I was talking about before. These are kind of just table views and table view cells, the same thing as we implemented previously. Right after this, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the code, and we can see some of the similarities and mirroring from what we did in the previous lesson. But yeah, so our goal is to be able to click on this and then see this collage in another screen. Let me go back to the code. So we could take a quick look on the photos view controller. So as you notice, this is also kind of similar to what we did before. Also, I'm not implementing anything right now, so don't get stressed. I'm just kind of looking over the code. Again, we added the subclasses table view delegate and UI table view delegate source, and those added the two stubs. It should be down here. But yeah, again, this is sort of the same little functionality and process that we did last time, just for you guys to see. But yeah, let's go back to what we were working on. Go back to the main storyboard. All right, so the next step is, since we have a view controller, remember that whenever you create a view controller, you have to create a file that relays all the information from the view controller, so we can control that. So go ahead and click on the controllers on your left-hand side right here. Make sure you click here, because if you like click on like the lab or somewhere else and it's not in this folder, Sometimes Xcode bugs out and it's really just not fun to deal with. So make sure you click on controllers here. And what you want to do now is go to File, New, and File. And then you want it to be a CocoaTouch class. We always use CocoaTouch classes. There's not really any other times that we're not going to use it, especially in this course. Go ahead and click Next. All right. So we want this to be a subclass of UI View Controller. And let's go ahead and name this Photo Details View Controller. Once again, just click on the controllers folder here, File, New File, CocoaTouch class, and then we're naming this class Photo Details View Controller. And it should be a subclass of UI View Controller. If this is not pre-selected like it was for me, just type it in and it should pop up. Example, UI View Controller. And also, I don't know if we brought this up before, but kind of the protocol for naming files is just adding it to the front of whatever the class of the file is, right? So this is a view controller, and we want to name it photo details, so we name it photo details view controller. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and just create this file. Create. And we should have a file here called photo details view controller. Okay, so now what we want to do is go back to the main.storyboard. And just because we created this file doesn't mean that they're automatically connected, right? Because there's no connection between this file, the photos detailed view controller, and this new view controller that we've made, at least not at this moment, because there's no relationship, right? So the way we fix that is we go to the view controller and we go to the driver's license here. And you should see it says custom class. And then in class, type in photo details view controller. And it should pop up if you've done everything correctly. Once again, go back to your main.storyboard, click on the new view controller that we've made, the photo, and then go to the driver's license next to the attribute inspector. And then in class, type in photo details view controller. That way, the code is kind of linked between the two. So whatever we change in the class of photo detailed view controller changes this actual thing in the storyboard. Okay, so next what we want to do is hold Option and click on the photo details view controller. And what that should do is kind of bring up our version in the new Xcode of the assistant editor. I know a lot of you guys had questions about the assistant editor in the walkthrough. That didn't work, but again, just press Option on whatever file you're trying to open, and that should split screen it. I'm not sure why Xcode removed that. I don't think it was a great idea, but we have to work with what we have. So, yeah. And what we're going to do now is click on the image view in the new view controller, hold Control, and drag that into the file here, which should create an outlet. So for connection, make sure you have outlet. And then for the name, we're going to go ahead and make that, let's see, what should we make? Let's go ahead and name that detail image. Detail, capital I, and image. Detail image. Next. And you should have a little outlet there. Let me go ahead and repeat that step one more time. I know it's a little bit confusing. So what you want to do is click on your image view, press Control, and drag it over here, and then name this detail image. I'm not going to do it because I already have it, but yeah. And now what we want to do, this is something new. Underneath the outlet, what we're going to put is we're going to put var image UI image. And basically what this does is it creates a variable that we're going to use later to kind of manipulate this outlet. We haven't connected the outlet to the image yet, but we're going to do that later, and we'll see that later. So once again, what I just did is I added var image and then colon UI image exclamation mark underneath the outlet. I'll give everybody a second. All right, and we have one last step before we're going to hand it off to Ninja. So what we're going to do now is we can close this. This is kind of... But okay, we can, I guess, do that here. What we're going to do next is we're going to click on the view controller. And then what we're going to do is go to the top of our screen and where like file was before, but go over to the right a little bit. And there should be a button that says editor. Go ahead and click on editor. And then click and then scroll down to embed in. It should be not really halfway, but like towards the bottom a little bit. I'll give you guys a little bit to find it, embed in. And then after you go to embed in, click navigation controller. Sweet. So what this does is it allows for different navigations to happen between this view controller and others, right? So what Minja's gonna start off with is he's gonna create a segue, which we kind of talked about before. And the segue is how we kind of move through different screens and view controllers. And Minja will kind of touch more on that. But yeah, I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen and then Minja, you gonna take over?
All right. Sounds good. All right. So I think this is where Ethan left off. So he just newly created a new navigation controller that the Photos View controller is embedded in. Let me zoom in real quick. All right. And we just have a new photo details view controller just sitting here that we need to connect. And so that's what I'm going to do right now. So first, I'm going to move my mouse over. Actually, I need to select the cell right here that's in the table view. And the best way to do that is by expanding the drop-down menu for Photos View controller and kind of making your way in there. And make sure that you select Photo Cell. Hopefully everyone can see this on my screen. But this is the best way to select the cell, because if you click on this, you might only select the image or the content. And we need the cell to be selected in order for this to work. So once photo cell is selected, I'm gonna hold the control key on my keyboard and move my mouse over the words photo cell right here, and then click and drag it right over the photo details view controller. And if it's hovering, if it's blue like this, that means you've done it right, and let go. And then we'll have a list of options you can choose from. So under selection segue, I'm gonna just select show. And that's the most basic way I can present a new view controller with a segue. All right, so again, what I did is I selected photo cell from the left-hand column right here, and then held the control key, clicked and dragged until it was right over the photo details view controller. And then I just let go. All right. Hopefully everyone's caught up. Yeah. Okay, now I'm gonna click into Photos View Controller, Photos View Controller.swift. And in here, we already have the code that we used to create the table view. So I'm gonna scroll down underneath, right until I get to this function get posts, and then move my cursor right underneath it, create some space, and I'm going to create a new function here. What option did I select after dragging? Show. Yeah. All right. So here I'm going to, or basically in order to create the segue and pass the information correctly from that main scrolling table view we have into this new individual screen with information from the cell, I need to write a function. I'm going to start typing, and it's called override func prepare. And then the first one should be for segue, UI storyboard segue sender any. And I'm just going to hit enter, and it should appear right here. Did everyone get that? I'm just going to redo it one more time. So override. Yeah, override function prepare for segue, and we should be good. Then I'm going to go in here and type let photo detail vc equals segue dot destination as photo details view controller. All right, give everybody a second to catch up. So what this line does is, so I just created a new, or Ethan created a new view controller called photo details view controller. And that's the one that currently just has an empty image view on it. It's not connected to anything. And I'm accessing that right here because that's technically the destination that we want to get to, the new view controller. And then I'm going to need to access that in order to pass information. All right. Next, I'm going to need to access the cell, the specific cell in that table view, because I'm going to need to know what image I clicked on, which specific cell I tapped on. And we're going to do that by typing let cell equals sender as photo cell. All right, I'm going to move on. And one more line of code here. Let image equals cell dot photo view dot image. And so what we're doing here is basically we're going to go into the cell. I can just show it on the storyboard if it'll load in a second. And what we're doing is kind of, so we now have this cell saved. We know which is the cell that's asking for this segue to happen. And we're going to go in the cell and pull out this image view. And the line of code I just typed is going to save this image so that it can be passed into the next, into this screen. Because we want to display this image here, and it needs to be passed over through the segue. So I'm going to click on to the photo details view controller.swift file. Currently, there's not much code in here, and we're only going to be adding one line. We're going to click into override function viewDidLoad. right underneath this line of code that says super.viewDidLoad. And again, what this function does is basically if it tells our app, you know, if this screen is loaded, or then we need to do these things right before to set things up. So I'm gonna be typing in detail image dot image equals image. So what's going to happen between these two files, and this is how they're going to communicate. We kind of have this middleman right here, just a variable that can be accessed from the other file. And this is how we're going to pass in the image that was clicked or selected into this new file so that it can be displayed correctly. And so since we have an outlet for the image that currently exists in our photo details view controller, all we're going to have to do is set the image attribute of that equal to the photo that we're passing in, the photo that was clicked on. I'm just gonna let people copy this down for a couple seconds. Yeah. All right, and then I'm gonna go back into photos view controller.swift and add one more line just to finish it off. And that line is going to be photo detail VC dot image equals image. And so again, photo detail VC is the name of the view controller that we're trying to pass the new info to, so that can display that image on its own. And we're going to access the image variable inside of that and tell it, hey, we just want it to be the same image that currently exists in the cell. All right, I'm going to give everyone a couple seconds just to finish copying it down. All right, and I think we're pretty much done. So I'm just going to run it and see what happens. All right, looks like it's still loading. Just give it a couple seconds. All right, I guess while we're waiting for it to load, someone asked in the chat, sorry, can you please explain what photo detail VC is? All right, so basically what happened is photo details view controller is the name of the new view controller, the new screen that we're trying to display. And if this will load, basically on the previous screen, we had a scrolling table view of several Tumblr posts. And when you click on one of them, what we want to happen is display a new view controller, a new screen that will show that image on its own in sort of a magnified form. So this is photo details view controller. And Okay, I'll get to all your questions in just a second. And so what this line does is this indicates a segue. It's sort of telling us, hey, there's a connection in between the cell. So if I tap it, it'll know that there's a connection that's supposed to lead to this. So if I go back to Photos View Controller, since the photo details view controller is the destination of that segue, kind of the end of that arrow line pointing toward that, we're just going to save that and access it. And we're going to let it know where we want the segue to go, where we're going to want to navigate to. And someone wanted me to show the top of the details class. So here we go. All right. It looks like it's finished loading. So what should happen here is it's working just as we want it to. When we click, it's going to transfer the info over to this new photo details view controller. And as we click on it, it's going to load that exact image into the new photo details view controller. And I can hit back, scroll. This one will load this image. Yep, all this works as intended. And this is pretty much the completed project. So we can answer any questions if you guys have any.
Yeah, if you guys don't have any other questions, that's basically all we wanted to cover today. Again, feel free. We're going to stick around for a little bit. If you guys want to just stay here, ask us any questions, just talk, we'll be here. But thanks for coming to class. We finished a little bit early today. This is basically all we wanted to cover. So this is kind of everything you're going to need to know to go into Flicks Part 1 and Part 2. Again, if you have any questions, stay around. But other than that, thanks for coming.
Oh, and before everyone else just heads out, I just want to give a quick announcement for next week's lab. I'd highly encourage that you guys attend because it's dealing with auto layouts, and personally, that's one of the more difficult aspects of iOS development and just development in general. It's just laying out your objects so they work in different environments. So that's what we're covering up next week, and hoping to see you guys all there.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen now.
When I clicked it, it showed an error that could not cast value of type UI view controller online and photo view. Yes, the video recordings are going to be posted. So we're going to send out a recap email with that as long as some other information. So we'll go ahead and send that after. But yeah, so we have this recorded and you guys will have access after. When I clicked it, it showed an error that could not cast value. Can you find that line in your computer project page?
Yeah, I'm going to copy and paste into the chat. I think what also might be causing the error is you got to rename the view controller screen. And they might not have done that. Let me see. I can share my screen again. All right. Whoever asked the question about getting that error about cannot cast type of value of type UI view controller on the line declaring photo detail VC. I think one thing that might be causing your error is if you click onto this photo details view controller right here and select it, you can do that by clicking on this specific icon right here. Inside the inspector pane, it needs to be of class photo details view controller. I think that might be causing your issue. It might just not be saying anything. And if you click the drop down and select photo details view controller and make sure that this line is identical to mine, it should fix your issue, I think. Yeah, let me know if that works.
If anyone else has any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask us the question. It's probably easier if we can everything chat.
Or if you guys have anything to say in general, questions about life or memes, feel free to share that.
Oh, Derek, also, where's the information about the Twitch meeting? Because I try to find that in the PowerPoint.
It's under one of these Slack channels, so let me pull it up.
For sure.
I think the post that she posted, I think it's from San Jose.
The name of the channel is iOS Spring 20.
Gotcha.
Wait, didn't we have a slide for that in our PowerPoint?
That's what I was thinking, but I just checked.
Oh,
Did
we announce it?
Yeah, so for those of you who are still there in Slack, also I hope all you guys are in Slack. If not, just let us know. We can get you in there. In iOS Spring 20, I think San Jose State University, their CodePath class, has a Twitch engineer, a software engineer for Twitch as a guest speaker on Friday at 4 o'clock. There's a link also in that chat. We'll go ahead after every lesson, we're gonna send out a recap that has like the lecture information, the video, as well as some other stuff. We can go ahead and include that in there so you guys are aware, but just wanted to give the heads up if you guys wanna go, there's a big opportunity to just learn from a Twitch engineer on Friday.